Hi everyone, it's Darlene. Welcome back for another card. Today's card uses the MISTI to align some images, so that's what I'm going to show you. I'm using this procaffeinated stamp by Funny Bones. This is Perfect Blend by Stampin' Up! And also Gorgeous Grunge. I'm going to use this drip stamp here. And I've got 2 Copic markers and 2 pastel pencils by Faber-Castell. Alright, the first thing I'm going to do is take my MISTI. I'm going to remove the foam because my stamp already has foam on it. I'm going to take my 4 1/4 by 4 1/4 inch piece of crumb cake. You can see my stamp has the Tombow Mono Multi Glue on it, and that's how I get it to stick, because sometimes the Stampin' Up! Ones don't stick. Anyway, so I'm going to figure out where it needs to go, and I'll ink it up with some VersaFine Sepia ink. I'll stamp it down on my cardstock. And now what I'm going to do is take a mask, and this is something I just stamped my stamp on a post-it and cut it out, and I'm going to re-ink, and now I'm going to stamp off. So I'm using an ink pad here because I needed even pressure for stamping off, and I was using my hand and I wasn't getting even pressure across the whole stamp, so this allows the ink to be even on the whole entire thing. Now I'm going to come down 1 grid mark and 2 grid marks over, and then I'll stamp my coffee cup again. And so this image is going to be lighter since I stamped off. And now I'm going to take my mask, I'm going to scoot it over and put it on this other image I just created. I'll re-ink my image, and now I'm going to stamp off twice. So I'm going to stamp off, and then I'll stamp my image. Oh, I forgot, I got to move it down 1 square, 2 squares over. It's always good to check it before you actually stamp. Alright, now I'm going to stamp this down, and then this image is going to be even lighter than the other one. So I'm just going to continue this until I have 5 altogether. And so on the next one I'm going to be stamping off 3 times, and then on the last one I'm going to be stamping off 4 times. Alright, now that my stamping is finished, I'm going to go in and add some detail. So I have E44 and E43 Copic markers, and I'm going to add the shading to the right hand side. I'm going to have E44 closest to the cup, and then I'll take E43 and blend it out. Now on this crumb cake cardstock, the markers fade over time, and they fade pretty significantly. So you have to sort of take your time to wait and see how the marker will actually look over time before you can say you're actually done. So I'm kind of going back and forth a little bit to make sure that I get the right amount of color. And then I also made the shadows larger or longer on the front cup and shorter on the back cup. I decided I wanted the front cup to stand out a little bit more, so I took my Faber-Castell pastel pencil in white, and it's kind of like chalk. And you could use a regular colored pencil. It wouldn't blend as well. You'd kind of have to use a lighter hand with it. So this chalk is it's nice because you can use your finger to blend it. So I went back in, and because this stamp has sketch marks in it, it's easy to know where the shading needs to be. So with my gray pencil, I just shaded it. And then I decided I wanted a little bit more brown over the gray, so I took a brown pencil and I just went over the gray a little bit. And then I went ahead and added some gray to the shadow just to have it match up a little. Now since I don't need my mask anymore, I'm just going to adhere it to this chocolate chip cardstock, and I'm going to cut out the cardboard piece for the cup. And I'm going to see if it matches up, and then I'll take it and adhere it to a piece of scratch cardstock. And that's just to make sure that it'll be nice and even as it goes through my crimper. So what I'll do is I'll kind of put it in there a little bit, then squeeze the handle, and then I'll run it through, and it looks like corrugated cardboard. I'm going to show this to you so you can see. It's a nice little look. I don't really use this crimper very often, so now I just pulled it off and added some glue dots to the back, And I didn't want to use liquid glue just because it's a little messy, and the glue dots would work just fine. So I glue dotted that down, just kind of for an added embellishment for some texture. And then I added faux stitching around the whole card using my Uniball white Signo gel pen, which is my favorite gel pen. Okay, now I really wanted to use the MISTI for my sentiment, which is a foam rubber sentiment. And it's hard to use with this because you can't see through your stamp, so you don't really know where you're stamping. But there is a way to use it. I use it with my Stamp-A-Majig sheet. So just place it anywhere on the Stamp-A-Majig sheet, doesn't really matter. And ink up your stamp, and then you'll actually stamp the image on the Stamp-A-Majig sheet. Now you could use a piece of vellum or anything that you can see through. So once I get the image on my sheet, I can then take what I'm stamping on, which for me is my card base in this case. So I'm going to line it up just where I want it to go, underneath my Stamp-A-Majig. Now once I get it perfectly lined up, I'll just carefully remove my Stamp-A-Majig. And I decided, since it's my card base and it's a folded piece of cardstock, I wanted to make sure that it was still, so I put some surgical tape on the top and the bottom, and I just secured it to my MISTI to make sure that it wouldn't move, especially if I needed to stamp twice. So now I'm just double checking it one more time to make sure that it's lined up correctly, and it is, so I'm going to re-ink. And then I realized just before I stamped that my tape was going to be in the way, so I moved it over to the corner so I wouldn't be stamping on the tape, and that's how you use the foam back stamps. Then I added some of these drops with the crumb cake ink, and I used my Stamp-A-Majig because I thought my ink pad was a little dry. It turned out that it was fine, but just in case I needed to stamp it twice. And I'm going to stamp it one more time on the left here. Now I'm using this foam tape somebody recommended. I really like it. I usually use Stampin' Up! Dimensionals, which are a little thicker, but these give a nice even coverage so you don't have kind of a wavy look because you have holes in the middle. So I really do like this. Now you see where I accidentally had like a piece of baby wipe material on my stamp, and so that caused an extra little spot of brown. So I just took my white gel pen and I dotted it on top of that, and you can't even tell at all. So that's how you fix that mistake. Okay, anyway, I hope you enjoyed that, and I will see you next time. Thanks for watching.